The Crusher Camaro is back. This is our 67 Camaro that you have seen on Roadkill Garage. You remember wrenching on this thing a bunch of times?
Oh yeah, we did a ton of work to it.
Here's something you may not know about the Crusher Camaro, Steve.
Try me.
This thing was built throughout 1994 for the very first Hot Rod Magazine Power Tour in 1995.
Whoa!
You know how I know that?
No.
It has this sticker on it right there.
Oh, no way.
Not only that, but I was there. As a matter of fact, if you look at that passenger door, you will see a chip on the top of the door where I was shooting car-to-car photos with my camera, and Rob Canan was driving, and he hit a bump, and I went, boom! And my tripod mount gacked the paint.
Look at that.
Yeah. Unacceptable. If you're unaware about Hot Rod Power Tour, it's been going on since 1995, and they call it the world's largest road trip. It started out just as the staff driving their own cars, including this one, and we invited some fans. I think we had about 40 cars go the whole way. Now they have 4,000 cars. So we gather up, have a car show and a drag race, and then drive from city to city. It's not a competition, it's just a cruise. So what we're gonna do with the legacy of this car at Hot Rod Magazine going back to 1994, and with it having been in the very first Hot Rod Power Tour, we are going to spruce this thing up and attend the very first Hot Rod Power Tour West, which is happening next weekend. It's Tuesday today. We've got to be there Thursday night to take off on Friday morning from Irwindale to drive all the way to Las Vegas, to drive all the way back to the Pomona drag strip.
Wow, that's gonna be a blast in this car.
But
we have to make it streetable.
We do. Right now it's all set up for drag racing. It's got, I think, a 456 rear gear, and of course slicks, no exhaust, all of that. So it's gonna be a big makeover in a very short time in order to make it streetable.
We can do it, Freiburger.
I think so.
Yeah.
Before we start wrenching, let me tell you the story of the Crusher Camaro. It dates back 30 years. Yup, when this episode first airs in 2024, it'll be exactly 30 years since I first bought this thing for Hot Rod Magazine and turned it into a project car. It's called the Crusher because I bought it at a junkyard where they were about to buy it and smash it on this whole government program that had to do with smog credits and stuff like that. And we thought it was completely bogus. That's why it's called the Crusher Camaro. The car has been built in a zillion different ways over these 30 years. At first, it was just sort of a standard 90s street machine. After that, it had a 632 big block Chevy in it, and it was on the cover of Hot Rod Magazine at that time, sort of with 17-inch wheels and stuff. After that, I had a little small block in it. Then I turned it into a 70s or 80s looking street machine with a big blown big block. After that, Finnegan and I did this amazing thing on an episode of Roadkill where we did a live engine swap at a trade show, and we removed the big block and installed an LS7. After that, it was on Hot Rod Garage where it had a blown LS7 in the thing. It goes on. And most recently, Steve Dulcich and I, right here on Roadkill Garage, made it look like this, which is very much a dead-on clone of like a 1974 street machine or drag car with the big ugly hood scoop and the big stupid stance and all these types of things. Now what we're gonna try and do in this episode is make it streetable. All right, Steve, we have to bite the bullet and just do the torque converter first thing.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking we have to knock out the stuff in order that has to be done, which is drivetrain stuff that's never gonna make it all the way on the road trip.
Exactly. And to remove the transmission, I say we start by removing this glorious hood so that we can get at the bell housing bolts and everything. And then we'll have to skyjack the thing and get under it and do that gruesome job that we can't stand. I'm changing the torque converter because the old one is 5,500 RPM stall. That's very drag racy. That feels very mushy on the highway. And also, it slips the converter, heats up the fluid, and it can kill the transmission. Got it.
All right.
I called Yank Converters. I said, I want 2,800 stall, so this thing should be way more streetable. You can see the larger converter is the lower stall. It's gonna be way better. Now I've got to do the old, you know, can I get it to click all the way on trick? Okay. If I put myself in a position where I can heave it, I can't see. This is way heavier than the old one. Ah, got it.
Oh, good.
Okay. If you're doing this at home, the key is to get the converter all the way in so that when you mate the bell housing up to the back of the engine, there's about 1/8 of an inch in between the pad on the converter and the face of the flex plate. You want to be able to tighten the bolts and pull the converter forward. Just that tiny, 3/16 to 1/8 of an inch. In other words, the converter should spin freely with everything bolted up except the flex plate.
The next thing we have to do is change the gear ratio, and to do that, we take the wheels and tires off, and then disassemble the brakes so we can pull the axle shafts out, then we can unbolt the third member. This is a Ford 9-inch, so it has a drop-out third member with the gear set all assembled. Normally, you don't have to pull the axle all the way out. You could just pull it enough to disengage it from the side gear or the spool, but we need to take it all the way out so we can match it up and make sure that it's 31 spline to match the gear, and it's not looking like it. It's just looking like 35.
We're screwed.
We're screwed.
Oh, here's a problem. I can't believe as many times as I've changed gears on this thing, I didn't remember this, but it has 35 spline axles, which is an aftermarket upsize that they never actually made. It's a Ford 9-inch differential. Factory Ford would have either 28 spline or 31 spline. Upgrades are often 35 or 40, and this thing has 35s. All right, this is gonna slow us down a little bit. However, I think I've got a solution, but it's not gonna happen for the next many hours. So I think what we should do is clean up and then move on to the exhaust system, which is gonna be a hassle. So we're gonna go ahead and install the exhaust system. Now, the Crusher Camaro was born in the 90s, and so were Flowmaster mufflers. I absolutely had to have them for that correct sound. You probably know this is that chambered muffler, all welded, no packing, that became so popular back in the day. And this is the Super 44 model. I got a 2.5-inch kit that we're gonna install. And by we, I mean, I'm gonna let Dulcich take charge. The exhaust is gonna hit the cross member here for the drive shaft safety loop, so unfortunately, the loop has gotta go.
I've cut the join that's going to connect the H-pipe to the collector reducer. Now all I'm going to do is tack weld it in a couple of spots so it holds that position. And once I've got the left side tacked in place, I'll make the same thing for the right side. Next thing I'm going to do is remove the whole exhaust system from the car and then take it to the bench and weld it up solid.
Now's when I reveal the second part of my scheme to take the Crusher Camaro on the very first Hot Rod Magazine Power Tour West. It's not just about making it more streetable. I also am gonna return the thing to the way it looked when we very first built the car in the pages of Hot Rod in 1994 and 1995. That means single 4-barrel cowl hood, Convo Pros, exactly like it was back then, or as near as I can get it at this point. Now, I have to admit, this breaks my heart a little bit because I love this 1974 look that we've got going on right now with the tunnel ram and the weird stance and the Kragers and dish mags and the grump lump. All that stuff is awesome. But if there's one consistent about the Crusher Camaro, it is that I love to change it all of the time. And this time it's weird because I'm gonna be updating it from this point, but kind of regressing it to where it was way back when. So 1994, 1995, here we come. I'm gonna talk to you about what I'm gonna do on the engine, sort of as I go. What is that? I have no idea what's going on there. I just pulled the radiator hose off and all of this crud was in the thermostat housing. Look at that. Mm-hmm. That is bad. You think that's electrolysis?
Yeah, it's aluminum oxide.
That's because there was nothing but water in here. Here's a problem. Drag racing cars, you're not supposed to put antifreeze in them. Antifreeze is also an anti-corrosive and a preventer of this. Yeah. That is the worst I've ever seen it.
It's pretty bad.
Packed in there. I'm gonna have to take the intake off and see how bad it is in the cylinder heads and stuff, and we're probably gonna have to flush the system. This is time I was not counting on.
Yeah, that's not good.
Wow. When the Crusher Camaro was first assembled by Hot Rod in 1994, a guy named Rob Canan was in charge, and he put a 400 cubic inch small block Chevy in it, just like what this is. And the intake manifold they used back then was an Edelbrock Performer RPM, just like what this is, or at least very similar. I'm not sure they had the Made in USA tag back then. If memory serves, I think they came out with this design right around the time the car was first built. The Performer RPM is a taller or high-rise version of a dual plane, so it benefits low-end torque. It's more of a street manifold. And unfortunately, by removing the tunnel ram and installing this, I am unbolting 50 horsepower. This engine with this intake manifold is gonna make right at 500 horsepower. Here's another step towards making this thing streetable. It needs an ignition timing advance curve. Right now, it is locked out, meaning I can only set the ignition timing to say 35 degrees before top dead center, and that's where it is regardless of RPM. So I'm gonna have to take this distributor apart, take this thing out, flip it over, add some advance weights, put some bushings in it, put the springs on, change the gear, push it back, just all that stuff. Here we go. Now comes time for the carburetor. When this car was new in '94, it had like an 1850 on it, a 4160 series Holley, the ones with the side hung float bowls. I couldn't have that. So I had to make a departure from originality, but I had to have a gold carburetor. I couldn't have the modern silver or black ones. This is my favorite carburetor, the Holley 1000 CFM HP. Here's the thing though, it's not really 1000 CFM. The throttle bore size and the venturi size on this are the same as on a 950. Not only that, but you can see that it's got annular boosters. That is a larger booster than the standard Holley dog leg, and annular means that it distributes fuel through a ring all inside the deal. And it also is a larger diameter, so it's more of a restriction, so it has more of a pressure drop so that it's got more pull, so it has like more draw on the fuel coming out of there. We have made these run great on all kinds of engines, and actually the calibration's pretty good right out of the box. They have a 31 squirter in the front, 36 in the back. I usually just swap those end to end, and then they are great. So yeah, I'm gonna install this on our 400. You know, it's weird how fashions change. Obviously, the Mickey Thompson aluminum valve covers were the kill in the 70s and early 80s. They're actually really cool now. As a matter of fact, you can buy Mickey Thompsons for big and small block Chevys brand new from Holley. But this car originally in the 90s had stamped chrome valve covers, which just leak. And so I got some of the die-cast aluminum ones, which were actually cool way back then. There's also a functional reason that I'm doing this. My tunnel ram had a breather sticking off the front, which is like for crankcase evacuation. And you'll notice that the Mickey Thompson valve covers don't have any breathers at all, whereas these new ones, which are from Mr. Gasket, do have breathers. And so stylish and functional. Once again, I have to remove parts that I love. Those Mickey Thompson valve covers are just great. Except for one fuel hose here, the engine compartment's pretty much done, and looking at it's making me realize that 1994 wasn't that far away. This kind of looks like every Camaro you'll see at Power Tour. Here's a couple things that I did. First of all, the blue Moroso Blue Max spark plug wires. By '94, I would say we were dedicated to the red MSD wires, but there was too much red going on, so I threw the blue ones on there. They're kind of retro, and you know what? Everybody had to have a chrome air cleaner with their favorite speed part name on it, so that's what we got. But we still have a big disaster going on with the rear suspension, and right now we're waiting for parts. Steve did a killer job on the exhaust system, but I have to admit, I have legit anxiety building because we have a hard deadline for this Power Tour West, and we get to go meet a bunch of fans and do signing autographs and things like that. But to do that, I have to get this car right. It has to look perfect, or I'm gonna be in a really bad mood. And part of that is the whole thing about taking it back to how it was in 1994, which means not having the big rake. Now, the thing is, right now, we've got some drag racing Caltrax or Calvert Racing springs on it that are actually a 1-inch lift. And the new springs that we have here are sort of a generic heavy-duty leaf spring, and I just have no idea what they're gonna do to the stance of the car, and that's what's like stressing me out. Before I can set the car on the ground to find out if the leaf springs have the new lower stance that I want, we need to obviously put the wheels and tires on. Before we put the wheels and tires on, we need to put the axles in. Before we put the axles in, we need to change the center section. Finally, we got the parts in the mail to change the rear gears. So we're gonna pull that apart and I'll show you what the differences are of what we're taking out and what we're putting in. We removed the Fabergé egg of Ford 9-inch center sections. I love having an aluminum housing on these things. It makes them so light and so race. This one's from Mosier Engineering, and it has a spool, meaning no differential at all, and a 4.57-to-1 gear ratio. Our new unit, I was able to overnight from Summit Racing. This is a 3.5-to-1 gear ratio, and the differential is a True Track. A Detroit True Track is like a clutchless posi. It uses gear bind in order to create drive to both the wheels. I've used them in a bunch of stuff. I actually love that differential. Now, why did I make this change? Because such a low gear like a 4.57-to-1 versus a higher gear like a 3.5-to-1, the lower gear makes the engine spin higher on the freeway. Specifically, in this deal, with a 26.5-inch tire on the back that I'll show you, at 75 miles an hour, this is gonna make the engine spin 4,300 RPM, and the higher gear ratio is gonna make it spin 3,400 RPM, and then don't forget, I've got the Gear Vendors Overdrive on top of that. So this is just gonna be far more highway friendly because of the gearing, and it's gonna be way more street friendly because it has a True Track instead of a spool. Did it go all the way? Yeah?
Yeah.
Center section's installed.
Good. Our Ford 9-inch differential is fitted with an aftermarket set of Bear Racing brakes. Now, that could be a problem when you find out that your brake pads are completely worn out, like these are. But fortunately, this kit uses a PBR caliper, which is the same as a 3rd-gen F-body. Now, that would be a Firebird or Camaro or variant. And that made it as simple as going to our local auto parts store and picking up these Duralast Gold brake pads. They're semi-metallic and they're OE level formulation. So you can take these new ones, pop them right in, and we'll be ready to run.
And now a critical element, the wheels and tires. This is gonna be super similar to what was on this car in 1994 and 1995. That is a Centerline Convo Pro 2. This is a modern reproduction of the original wheels that aren't made anymore. And I gotta be honest, it's not quite right, but I don't think most of you are gonna notice why. The fronts, those are legit. Those are actually made in 1994, genuine Centerline Convo Pros. 15x4 in the front, 15x8, or maybe they're 8.5 in the back. Originally, this car had a Mickey Thompson Indy Profile tire on the back. Those are no longer made, and that's why this is a ProTrack N5015, but it has the right kind of tread look and that squared off profile that is signature to a bias ply tire that we would have used back in the day. In the front, I have a Mickey Thompson 26-inch tire on the thing, and they're an 8-ply. You may not be aware that they make those front skinnies in a couple different plies, and I got the heavier duty ones just because we're gonna be driving on the highway, and I just want a little more beef. Okay, we're gonna put these on and then set it on the ground and find out if these new leaf springs are gonna give me the stance that I want, or if it's gonna be a total fail. I mean, look at that. We need to close up that gap to right about there to have this look decent. I don't have high hopes. All right, let her down slow. All right, that sits way too high in the back.
Maybe if you give it a bounce.
Ugh, the shocks are set on full stun for drag racing, so.
Oh, it doesn't move at all.
Doesn't move at all. Not what I was hoping for as far as the stance goes. But hey, it's good enough for now because we got to be at Irwindale first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
All right, let's see if we can make this thing run. Crank it. That's pretty good. It's got a little header leak. 1,000 CFM carburetor, right? 400 cubic inches. Right, runs good. I'm pretty happy with that, and I think we're gonna put the hood on it, check some fluids, and we're gonna load this thing on the trailer and run it down to Irwindale for the start of Hot Rod Power Tour West. The quickest this car has ever run is 1067 at I think 125 or close, 124 and a half or something like that. But now we've got a lot of strikes against us, obviously, so I have no idea what's gonna happen.
You gonna give us a good burnout?
I don't know, I hope so. All right, here's Freiburger's lined up, doing his burnout. Car's getting a little squirrely. Okay. Oh, he bobbled a little bit on the line, but he easily handled the El Camino.
Well, I spun real bad off the line, so that's not gonna be great. But it ran all the way down clean. Thank you. Yeah, 1292 at 108, pretty weak. We'll go again. I'm gonna see if I can pick a better spot on the track.
Yeah, Freiburger is right back in the burnout area. He's going to make another pass. Hopefully he's going to do better than the 1290s he ran last time. But the timing clocks do not lie.
Still spun the tires and I had to pedal. Not good.
Okay, 1190 cleared a whole second off the time, which is pretty remarkable. But you know what? That wasn't even near the potential of the car, because I could see he had a little trouble with the trans brake again. So it wasn't a clean lead. That always costs time. But we've got an 11-second time slip, and that's pretty good. This is probably going to be our last pass of the day. I mean, it did run in the 11s. That's pretty good. See if we can do better. Yeah, now that's a burnout. Got the slicks nice and hot. That should help traction up the line. The thing is, our man Freiburger is a competitor. He wants to beat himself. He ran an 1190. See what he does right here. He's staged up. Right there. Wow, that was a nice lead. Perfect. He's got this. He's got this.
That's gonna be my best pass. All right, I think we can leave happy with that. That had to have been the best. Yep, 1175, 116.49, slowing down half a mile an hour. I think the car can go quicker.
Yeah, I do too.
But not here today.
No.
Yeah, let's go to Pomona.
Okay, let's do it. We're here, world famous Pomona Dragway. Now this place is usually reserved for national events, so running a car here is pretty special. One of the special treats for us is our crew from Pomona Dragway is here running the event. There's Cleet at the starting line. He's the starter for this event. Freiburger's gonna try to beat that 1170 he ran in Vegas. I think he can do it. Will he? We'll find out.
Yeah, this track is torn up. And for some reason, this sounded like it was misfiring. And there's my pass at Pomona. I really drove it easy out of the hole. It spun a little bit.
1176. It ran exactly the same.
Talk about repeatability. This thing just went 1176 at 119.88. Right on. Dude,
It ran exactly the same.
with more mile an hour.
1176.
Yeah, 1176 at 119.88, dude.
Oh, dude, this thing's running 120 in the quarter.
I know, this thing's got power.
Wow.
I want to get this thing at Famosa on a fully prepped track.
We will.
Man, that was good. Yeah.
Wow. Pretty good, Freiburger.